While I was traveling, my daughter moved my belongings to the basement, stating, "My in-laws will be staying in your room." When I returned home and saw my daughter crying and my son-in-law looking depressed, I just smiled and said, "Pack your things." They didn't expect that. You won't believe what I did. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I stood in the foyer that July morning, suitcase by my feet, holding a white envelope that contained $2,000 in cash. The money felt substantial between my fingers. 20 crisp, hundreds I'd withdrawn the day before. "Cora!" I called toward the living room. She appeared in the doorway, phone screen illuminating her face with that pale glow I'd grown accustomed to. Her eyes never left the device as she approached. Thumb scrolling in that automatic way people have now, I extended the envelope toward her. "Here's the money for that roof repair you mentioned. 2,000 should cover it, right?" She took it without meeting my gaze. Her thumb flipped through the bills, counting quickly, efficiently. The phone never left her other hand. I waited, hoping for something more. Connection, maybe. Acknowledgement, at least. The contractor said it was urgent. Yeah, whatever. I'll handle it. She was already turning away, sliding the envelope into her back pocket, returning to whatever held her attention on that glowing screen. The sting was small, but sharp. I pushed it aside. She'd always been distant, I told myself. Ever since her mother died, something had calcified between us. Give her time. Give her space. Be patient. Footsteps approached from the kitchen, heavy, casual. Nicholas emerged carrying a beer bottle, condensation dripping down its brown glass sides. 9 in the morning, and he was drinking. Again, he raised the bottle in a mock salute. "Have a good trip, Perk." The nickname scraped against my nerves. I'd asked him more than once to use my full name. Percy. Not difficult, not complicated, just respect. "Thanks, Nicholas, and I prefer Percy, if you don't mind." He was already turning back toward the kitchen. "Sure thing, man." I watched him disappear through the doorway. He'd been living in my house for 8 months now. Temporary financial difficulties, Cora had explained when they first arrived. Temporary had stretched like taffy, reshaping itself around excuses and delays. But I hadn't pressed. What was I supposed to do? Kick out my daughter and her husband? Put them on the street? That wasn't who I was. Before Nicholas vanished completely, I caught something, a glance between him and Cora. Quick, loaded with meaning I couldn't decipher. She glanced at him, then away. He nodded slightly. Then both returned to their separate spaces as if nothing had passed between them. Paranoia, I told myself. Jet lag before the jet. I grabbed my suitcase handle and headed for the door. The airport was efficient. Check-in, security, gate. I settled into my seat on the Rome-bound flight, pulled out my worn copy of a Roman history book, let my spine relax into the cushion. 6 months of planning had led to this moment, leading an educational tour for retired community members through Italy, sharing my passion for history, for learning, for those ancient stones that held centuries of human triumph and failure. This was what retirement should be. Finally living dreams you'd postponed. The engines roared. We lifted. Portland fell away beneath clouds. Hours passed. The Atlantic unreeled below us, while back home the sun climbed higher. Then began its afternoon descent. In my bedroom, the master bedroom on the second floor that I'd shared with my wife for 33 years before cancer took her, Cora stood in the doorway, Nicholas beside her. "Finally," he said. "Time to move." Cora hesitated, her hand lingering on the doorframe. She stepped inside slowly, looking around at the space. Her eyes landed on the framed photograph on my nightstand. Her mother and me at the coast, wind whipping her mother's hair across her laughing face. Cora picked it up, studying it. "He won't care about this," Nicholas said, reaching over and taking the frame from her hands. He set it face down on a cardboard box they'd brought upstairs. "That's my mom?" Cora's voice barely reached whisper level. "Then we'll put it somewhere safe, in the basement. He won't even notice." Nicholas was already pulling clothes from my closet, dumping them into boxes without folding. My parents need a real room, not some basement cave. They're elderly. They deserve comfort. "Nick, maybe we should wait until—" "Wait for what?" He turned to face her, hands on hips. "He's gone for 2 weeks. My parents arrive in 3 days. This is happening." Cora stood there, conflict washing across her features. But this is his room, and this is our house now. Nicholas's voice carried that edge it always had when he wanted something firm, dismissive of alternatives. He's old, Cora. He doesn't need all this space. What's he going to do? Throw us out? We're family. Books came off shelves. My reading chair got dragged toward the door. The bedside lamp my wife had chosen, ceramic, hand-painted with blue flowers, disappeared into a box. Cora helped, her movements mechanical, her face carefully blank. Whenever doubt flickered across her expression, Nicholas would make another practical statement about his parents' needs, about elderly people and stairs, about how I'd understand, about how this made sense. By evening, the room had transformed. Their bed replaced mine. Nicholas's parents' belongings filled the closet. A new lock gleamed on the door. Nicholas had installed it himself, the drill whirring through wood, shavings falling to the floor like my presence being erased one curl at a time. Meanwhile, I stood on a terrace in Rome. The sun was setting, spilling gold across ancient buildings that had witnessed empire and collapse, glory and ruin. I breathed in air that tasted of history and possibility. My group had gathered behind me, exclaiming over the view, but I'd stepped slightly apart to experience this moment alone. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. This was living. This was purpose. I stood there watching colors bleed across the Roman sky, feeling more alive than I had in years, not knowing that everything I'd left behind was being systematically taken from me. 2 weeks of European history and laughter had left me exhausted but content as the taxi pulled away from my front walkway that late Tuesday evening. Jet lag made my limbs heavy, made the suitcase in my hand feel like it contained stones rather than dirty clothes and souvenirs. But I was home. The word felt sweet. The lights were on. Someone had waited up, thoughtful. I turned my key in the lock, pushed open the door, reached for the foyer light switch out of habit. My tired eyes needed the extra brightness. Then I froze. 2 elderly people I had never seen in my life sat on my couch watching my television in my living room. The woman had gray hair pulled back in a loose bun. The man held the remote control, frozen mid-click. They turned their heads toward me in perfect unison, their faces registering the same confusion that must have been showing on mine. Several seconds passed. Nobody spoke. My exhaustion-fogged brain struggled to process the scene, to find some logical explanation. Home invasion? No, they looked too comfortable, too settled. Medical emergency requiring strangers? Nothing appeared wrong. Had I walked into the wrong house? No. There was my bookshelf, my reading chair, my mother's painting on the wall. Who are you? The words came out harder than I had intended. The man lowered the remote slightly. Who are you? The woman leaned forward, raising her voice toward the back of the house. Nicholas, there's someone at the door. Nicholas. Understanding began to dawn, cold and unwelcome. Footsteps from the kitchen. Nicholas appeared, beer in hand as always, his expression annoyingly casual. Oh, Percy's back! He gestured between us like a host at a dinner party. Dad, this is my father-in-law. I told you about him. Percy, these are my parents. They're visiting for a couple weeks. I stared at him, then at the elderly strangers, his parents apparently, then back at Nicholas. Visiting. A couple weeks. The words felt slippery, refusing to form into sense. Visiting? Since when? Nicholas took a sip of beer, waved his free hand dismissively. About 10 days now. Cora didn't text you? No. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. She didn't. Huh. Well, jet lag, right? Makes you forget to check messages. He said this as though I were the one at fault, as though the problem was my inattention rather than his complete failure to ask permission. Anyway, Dad, Mom, this is Percy. Percy, Tom, and Barbara Dryden. Tom nodded slowly. Barbara managed a small smile. They seemed nice enough, confused, but nice. This wasn't their fault. They probably thought their son had arranged proper accommodations, had gotten approval, had acted like a reasonable human being. I needed to process this alone. Excuse me. I grabbed my suitcase, headed for the stairs. My legs felt shaky. 14 hours of travel, and now this. I just needed my bed, my room, some quiet to think through whatever was happening here. I reached the second floor. turned down the familiar hallway to my bedroom. The door was closed. Unusual. I typically left it ajar. I shifted the suitcase to my other hand, reached for the doorknob, turned it, locked. Confusion spiraled into alarm. I knocked, tentatively at first, then harder. The door opened a crack. Barbara Dryden appeared, now wearing a bathrobe, hair in curlers, clearly ready for sleep. She looked at me with polite but firm finality. "I'm sorry, but we've already gone to sleep." I stood there, suitcase in hand, trying to formulate words. This is my bedroom." Her confusion deepened. "Nicholas said this was the guest room for us." "Where are my things?" "I don't know. Perhaps you should ask Nicholas." The door closed. I heard the lock click into place. I stood in my own hallway, blocked from my own bedroom by a stranger in a bathrobe. The absurdity would have been comical if my chest weren't tightening, if my hands weren't starting to shake. Down the stairs, each step heavier than the last. I found Cora in the kitchen, wiping down counters that already looked clean. Her back was to me. Of course it was. "What's going on?" My voice came out strained, higher than normal. "Where are my things?" She kept wiping. Circular motions. Repetitive. Avoiding. "Dad, don't make a scene." "Don't make a scene?" The volume surprised even me. I come home to strangers in my house and my bedroom locked. She finally turned, but her eyes fixed somewhere past my shoulder. "We moved your stuff to the basement. Nick's parents needed a proper room. They're elderly. Stairs are hard for them." She delivered this explanation as if it were completely reasonable, as if I should have expected it, as if displacing the homeowner was simple logic. "You understand. You didn't even call? You didn't ask?" Nicholas entered then, positioning himself between us. Protecting her or controlling the situation, I couldn't tell which. Maybe both. "Percy, don't be childish. It's temporary." Something hot rose in my throat. "Childish? This is my house. And we all live here." His tone dripped patronization, the kind you'd use with a confused toddler. "My parents needed somewhere comfortable. Besides, you're alone. You don't need such a large room. The basement has everything you need." "Everything I need?" I repeated the words slowly, tasting their bitterness. "Exactly." He misread my tone as submission, nodded as if we'd reached agreement. "Now, if you'll excuse us, it's late. We can discuss this more tomorrow when you're less jet-lagged." He guided Cora out of the kitchen. She went without protest, without looking back. I stood there alone, fluorescent lights humming overhead, their footsteps receding toward the living room, toward normalcy, toward the life continuing above while I'd been shoved below. The basement stairs descended into dimness. I flicked the switch. Bare bulb-illuminated concrete walls, exposed pipes, the reality of my new accommodations. My belongings were piled in the corner, clothes spilled from boxes that had been packed hastily without care, books stacked haphazardly, some of them first editions I'd collected over decades, now treated like garage sale surplus. My furniture had been arranged with no thought to comfort or logic. The bed frame was the old guest bed, the one with springs that announced every movement. I sat on the edge. The springs creaked loudly, protesting my weight. The mattress sagged in the middle. Musty smell filled my nostrils, that particular scent of underground spaces, of earth and damp and neglect. On top of one box, someone had placed the framed photograph. My wife and me at the coast, wind in her hair, joy on both our faces. At least they'd included it. Small mercy. I picked it up, held it in both hands. Smooth glass, familiar faces. A time when family had meant something different. Something inside me cracked. Not grief. I'd processed that years ago when cancer took her. This was different. Sharper. This was the sound of illusions shattering. The illusion that family meant loyalty. The illusion that being kind meant being respected. The illusion that my daughter still saw me as her father, rather than as an obstacle to be moved aside like outdated furniture. I set the photograph carefully on the concrete floor, leaned back against the thin pillow, stared up at the ceiling. Above me, floorboards creaked, footsteps, voices murmuring, television sounds, life happening in my house, in the spaces I'd been exiled from. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow I'd figure out what this meant. Tomorrow I'd decide how to respond. But even then, in that moment of defeat, something else was forming. Small. Hard. A seed of something I didn't recognize yet. It sat in my chest alongside the hurt and humiliation, quietly taking root. I closed my eyes, exhaustion finally pulling me under. The springs creaked one last time as I shifted position, trying to find comfort on a bed that wasn't mine, in a space that wasn't meant for living, in the basement of my own house. Morning arrived with the mercy of a headache and the indignity of a back that refused to straighten properly. I woke on that basement bed, body stiff, every joint protesting the night spent on springs that had probably been ancient when I first bought them decades ago. Gray light filtered through the small window near the ceiling. The dampness had worked its way into my bones, something that never happened in my proper bedroom with its good mattress and climate control. I lay there, staring at concrete walls, yesterday's events cycling through my mind on an endless loop. Not a nightmare. Real. My daughter had exiled me to the basement of my own house to make room for strangers. Forcing myself upright took more effort than it should have. The basement bathroom was cramped and cold, the shower producing only lukewarm water, no matter how long I let it run. I dressed in wrinkled clothes pulled from my suitcase, still unpacked because I had nowhere proper to put anything. Voices drifted down from upstairs, laughter, the domestic sounds of morning. I climbed the basement stairs, each step accompanied by the sounds growing louder. Kitchen noises, coffee percolating, someone telling a story. When I emerged into the hallway, I found the entire household gathered at the breakfast table. Cora at the stove flipping pancakes, Nicholas gesturing with his hands as he entertained his parents with some anecdote. Tom and Barbara laughed on cue, the scene I'd been excluded from. I moved to the coffee maker, poured a cup. The first sip stopped me cold. Wrong. Bitter. Cheap. Nothing like what I always bought. I turned to face the kitchen. Where's my coffee? The blend I always buy? Cora didn't look up from the stove. Dad, don't be so picky. Coffee is coffee. It's not about being picky. I've bought the same brand for 20 years. She flipped a pancake with more force than necessary. Well, this is what we drink now. I set the cup down, noticing for the first time the table arrangement. 5 plates, 5 sets of silverware, 5 chairs occupied. I moved to the remaining empty chair and sat. Nobody offered me food. After a long moment, Cora glanced over her shoulder. Did you already eat? No, I just woke up. She shrugged, turning back to the stove. Well, I made exactly enough for 5. Didn't know you'd want some too. The arithmetic landed like a slap. 5 people mattered. I didn't factor into the count. You made breakfast for 5 people, I said slowly, in my house, and I'm not one of them. Nicholas interrupted, his tone jovial as if I were being absurd. There's cereal in the cabinet, Percy. Help yourself. I stood and walked to the refrigerator, needing space from their casual cruelty. Pulled open the door, nearly empty. Beer, Nicholas's preference, of course. Some picked-over takeout containers. Condiments. Nothing substantial. Nothing I would have purchased. The freezer held more beer and frozen pizzas. I stood there, cold air washing over my face, understanding settling in. This had been happening gradually while I planned my trip, while I was gone. My groceries replaced with theirs. My preferences erased. My home transformed one substitution at a time. I closed the door. My appetite had vanished anyway. I needed to get out, think clearly. Somewhere neutral. The walk to Central Library took 15 minutes. Cool morning air, familiar streets, the rhythm of movement helping me process what was happening. Inside, I wandered through the history section without really seeing the spines, picking up books and putting them down again. Near the legal section, I noticed a woman about my age examining books on family law, property rights, elder law. She caught me looking and offered a wry smile. Not the cheeriest reading material. Something about her directness invited conversation. We ended up at the small coffee shop inside the library. Her name was Beatrice Holmes, retired real estate attorney, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She shared her story without my asking, as if she could see I needed to hear it. Her son had tried similar tactics, slowly taking control, changing documents, treating her like she was incompetent. They think because we're older, we're helpless, she said, stirring her coffee. I found myself telling her everything. The basement, the strangers in my bedroom, the breakfast arithmetic, the casual erasure. Words poured out that I hadn't intended to share. Her expression hardened as I spoke. Percy, this isn't just disrespect. This is the beginning. She leaned forward. People who do this don't stop at making you uncomfortable. They're positioning to take everything. Take everything? Check your documents, your bank accounts, everything. Her gaze held mine. I'm betting you'll find this has been planned for a while. That cold feeling spread through my chest again. She slid a business card across the table, tapping it twice. Call me after you look. You're going to need help. I walked home, dread growing with each step. The house was quieter when I returned. The Drydens must have gone out sightseeing. I descended to the basement, opened my laptop, and started searching. Email first. Utility bills? I searched for recent ones. Nothing. Strange. I logged into Portland General Electric's website, entered my account number. Contact information displayed on screen. Changed 3 months ago. Email address listed. Cora's. Phone number. Cora's. Authorization notes. Daughter taking over account management due to father's declining health. My hands started shaking. Water Bureau. Same pattern. Gas company. Same. Internet provider. Same. Every utility. Systematically transferred to her contact information. All claiming I had declining health. Needed someone to manage my affairs. I pulled up my bank accounts, credit card statements I'd neglected while planning the trip. $8,000 in charges over 2 months. Restaurants I'd never been to. Electronics I didn't own. Clothing purchases that weren't mine. All on my card. Cora was listed as authorized user, something I had never ever signed for. The cold feeling spread through my entire body. I started creating a spreadsheet, documenting every irregularity, each unauthorized change, each lie they'd told. The laptop screen illuminated my face in the dim basement as columns filled with evidence. Above me, floorboards creaked, voices raised, Nicholas and Cora arguing about something. I could hear through the thin ceiling. Nicholas's voice, angry. The old man's starting to snoop around, asking questions. Cora, defensive. I told you we should have waited. Nicholas cutting her off. We've waited long enough. He doesn't need to know everything. We'll handle it. My fingers paused over the keyboard. They knew I was investigating, and they weren't stopping. I picked up my phone, scrolled to the number Beatrice had given me, and pressed call. She answered on the second ring. Percy? I looked at my laptop screen, at the spreadsheet documenting every violation. Above me, the argument had faded to murmurs. I need help, I said, and I think I'm ready to fight back. I woke the next morning with something I hadn't felt in days. Purpose. No more lying there processing shock. No more accepting humiliation. Beatrice had talked me through the basics last night. What to check, where to go, how to document everything. Now I had a plan. I dressed carefully. Slacks, button-down shirt, good shoes. The clothes of a man conducting serious business, not a displaced father hiding in a basement. I checked my reflection in the small mirror. Presentable, capable, dignified. Upstairs was still quiet. Everyone sleeping. I found the cereal Nicholas had mentioned, ate quickly standing at the counter, and left the house before anyone stirred. My car started smoothly. First stop, Portland General Electric's customer service office on Southeast Division Street. The representative, Sandra, was middle-aged with kind eyes that had probably seen too much. I presented my identification and account number. I need to know when my contact information was changed and who authorized it. She typed, clicked, scrolled. 3 months ago. Changed by Cora Patterson. She read from the screen. She presented herself as your authorized representative. Said you were experiencing health decline and she needed to manage your affairs. My jaw tightened. I never authorized that. I have no health issues whatsoever. I just organized and led a 2-week educational tour through Europe. Her expression shifted to sympathy, a look that said she'd encountered this before. I'm sorry, Mr. Patterson. This happens sometimes with family members. We require very little documentation for these changes, maybe too little. I repeated the same process at the Water Bureau, the gas company, the internet provider. Same story everywhere, same lie, same 3-month time frame. This wasn't impulsive. This was coordinated, systematic. By the time I reached my bank, the Hawthorne branch of U.S. Bank, my controlled anger had crystallized into something harder. Michael Torres, the customer service representative, pulled up my account. Young guy, professional demeanor, but his eyes widened when he saw the charges. The credit card charges, I said. I don't recognize any of them. How was my daughter added as an authorized user? I never signed for that. Michael navigated through screens. There's a signature here from 6 months ago. He turned the monitor toward me. I stared at my alleged signature. Close, but wrong. The capital P didn't curve the way mine did. The Y didn't loop properly. Someone had practiced, gotten it mostly right. But the details were off. That's not my signature, I said quietly. Are you certain? Sometimes our signatures vary. I'm a retired teacher. My voice stayed level, controlled. I've signed my name thousands of times on papers, grade books, official documents. Look at my driver's license. The P is completely different. The Y doesn't loop like that. This is forged. Michael's expression grew grave. Then you need to file a police report for identity theft, and we'll need an official dispute form for these charges. How much are we talking about? He calculated. $8,247.32. The number hit like physical impact. Over $8,000. Stolen. We'll start the dispute process, Michael said. But Mr. Patterson, this happens more often than you'd think with elderly clients. I'm not incompetent, I interrupted. I'm being defrauded. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. Yes, there is. My last stop was Stephen Blake's notary office, housed in a converted home near Laurelhurst Park. Stephen had notarized my will years ago, knew my signature intimately. Stephen, I need to verify my will is still intact. He retrieved the file, spread it across his desk. Everything looked normal. The house would go to Cora upon my death, as intended when I drafted it after my wife passed. But, Stephen said, squinting at his notes, you should check your property title recently. My stomach dropped. Why? In Oregon, if someone has access to your documents, they might try adding themselves to a title deed through a quitclaim deed, essentially trying to gift themselves partial ownership. He looked up at me. It's not legal if they forge it, but it creates a nightmare to untangle. How do I find out? Official title search. I can order it now. Rush processing takes 2 to 3 business days. I paid for it immediately. 2 to 3 business days. The wait felt like a ticking clock, counting down to revelation. When I returned home that afternoon, the house was empty again. I descended to the basement and spread everything across my makeshift desk. Created a detailed spreadsheet with columns. Date, service, unauthorized change, amount, documentation. Electric company, unauthorized contact change, false claims of declining health. Water, same pattern. Gas, same. Internet, same. Credit card, $8,247 in fraudulent charges. Property title, pending investigation, results in 3 days. I photographed every document with my phone, uploaded everything to secure cloud storage, created backup files. The evidence mounted, irrefutable and damning. Evening settled in. I heard the front door open, voices returning, footsteps overhead, then raised voices again. Nicholas angry. The old man's been everywhere today. Electric company, bank, notary. He's building the case. Cora, fear in her voice. What if he goes to the police? He won't. He's too weak. Too worried about family image. Nicholas's tone carried contempt. Besides, we've got cover. All those companies think he's sick. We just need to make sure everyone else believes it too. A pause. Then Cora, hesitant. You want to make him look incompetent? We already started. Now we finish. I sat motionless at my desk, phone in hand. They weren't backing down. They were escalating, planning to destroy my credibility, make everyone believe I was declining, incompetent, unreliable. I pulled up Beatrice's contact and pressed call. She answered immediately, voice alert. What did you find? I looked at the evidence spread before me. Everything you warned me about. 3 months of systematic changes. $8,000 in forged charges. They told utility companies I have declining health. I don't. And they might have tried to alter my property deed. Sharp intake of breath. Percy, this is serious fraud. You need legal representation. I need more than that. I need them out of my house. Legally. Pause. Then firm. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Bring everything you found today. We're going to need a lawyer. Above me, the voices had gone quiet, planning their next move, no doubt. Good, I said, staring at the ceiling, at the floorboards of my stolen life. I'm done being defensive. Stumptown coffee smelled like hope and fresh beginnings when I pushed through the door at 9 the next morning. The bell chimed overhead. Beatrice sat at a corner table, 2 steaming cups already waiting, spiral notebook open, several thick legal reference books stacked beside her like ammunition. She looked up as I approached, gestured to the empty chair. "Thank you for this," I said, setting my documentation folder on the table. She waved off the gratitude. "We're helping each other. Besides, I've been where you are. I know what this feels like. Now show me everything you found." I opened the folder, spread the evidence across the small table. Utility company letters, bank statements, photographs of the forged signature, my real one next to their imitation, the detailed spreadsheet I'd created, each violation cataloged with dates and amounts. Beatrice examined each item with professional scrutiny, occasionally making notes, asking clarifying questions that showed she understood exactly what she was seeing. Finally, she closed the last document and looked at me with serious eyes. "First rule, document everything. Every violation, every call, every document. You've started well, but we need this airtight." She opened her notebook to a fresh page, drew a line down the middle. Violations on one side, actions on the other. We built the list together, her neat legal handwriting filling the columns. Violations, unauthorized utility account changes at 4 separate companies, all within the same 3-month window. Unauthorized credit card use totaling $8,247.32. Forged signature on credit card authorization. Possible title deed tampering, pending verification. Physical displacement from my own bedroom. "In Oregon," Beatrice explained, tapping her pen on the notebook, "you have absolute right to evict anyone from your property, even family members. 30-day notice, no reason required. They're technically tenants. Month to month at best, guess at worst." My pen hovered over the notebook. "She's my daughter." The word cracked slightly in my throat. Beatrice reached across the table, placed her hand over mine. Warm, firm, grounding. "Percy!" She waited until I met her eyes. "She doesn't respect you. She's using you. You deserve better than this." My eyes stung, but my jaw stayed set. "This isn't revenge," Beatrice continued, her voice firm but kind. "This is reclaiming your life. This is showing her that actions have consequences. Maybe that's the best thing you can do for her. Teach her that lesson now before she does this to someone else." Something shifted inside me. My back straightened. I picked up the pen with steady hand. "All right. What do I need to do?" We spent the next hour crafting strategy, point by point. Beatrice wrote as we talked. 1. Attorney consultation for legal eviction. She recommended Robert Chen, experienced in eviction and family disputes. Call him tomorrow morning. 2. Financial lockdown. Tonight, change every password, block every card they have access to, cut off their resources before they know what's happening. 3. Continue documentation. Photograph everything. Maintain detailed logs with timestamps. 4. Challenge the utility changes. Restore rightful control using proof of ownership. 5. Inform Nicholas's parents. They deserve to know the truth. They might withdraw their support. I added notes in margins, asked questions about Oregon law, timelines, potential complications. By the time our coffee cup sat empty, we had a complete action plan with specific steps and clear sequence. The drive home felt different. I wasn't returning to exile. I was entering a battlefield I intended to win. I pushed through the front door, not the side entrance to the basement, but the main door. Nicholas and Cora sat on the living room couch, some reality show flickering on the television. They looked up as I entered. Nicholas, with that mocking tone I'd grown to hate. "Well, well, Percy's back. So have you accepted the new arrangement?" Challenge hung in his voice. Expectation that I'd retreat, shuffle to my basement corner, accept my place. But I didn't retreat. I stopped, looked at them both, allowed myself a small, knowing smile. "We'll see, Nicholas. We'll see." Cora's eyes narrowed. She recognized something different in my tone, though she couldn't identify what. I turned toward the basement stairs, walked down with straight shoulders, and immediately opened my laptop. New email. To Robert Chen, attorney at law. Dear Mr. Chen, I am writing to request legal representation in a property and financial fraud matter involving family members currently residing in my home without authorization. I paused, read what I'd written, felt the weight of it. This was real now. Official. Legal action against my own daughter. My phone buzzed. Text from Beatrice. You've got this. Call Chen first thing tomorrow. Meanwhile, start the financial lockdown tonight. I typed back. Already drafting the email. Thank you for everything today. Returned to the email. Laid out the situation in clear, factual terms. Attached the most damning documents. The forged signature comparison, the spreadsheet, the utility company confirmations. My finger hovered over the send button. Above me, floorboards creaked. Voices murmured. Life continuing in my house while I prepared to reclaim it. I pressed send. The whoosh of the email departing felt like launching something that couldn't be called back. Point of no return? But I wasn't afraid anymore. For the first time since returning home, I felt like myself again. Capable, decisive, in control. I opened my banking website, began changing passwords. One account after another. New passwords they'd never guess. Two-factor authentication enabled, requiring my phone. Each click severed another thread of their unauthorized access. Hours passed. When I finally closed the laptop, night had fallen outside the small basement window. But inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Power. The elevator doors opened on the 15th floor of the Wells Fargo Tower, revealing downtown Portland through floor-to-ceiling windows. The law offices of Chen and Associates occupied a corner suite, professional but not ostentatious. Polished wood, leather chairs, framed degrees on walls. The receptionist showed me to a conference room where Robert Chen waited, my emailed documentation already printed and spread across the table in organized stacks. He stood to shake hands. Mid-40s, sharp suit, confident grip. Mr. Patterson, I've reviewed everything you sent. Please sit down. I took the offered chair. Chen sat across from me, fingers steepled, expression serious. This is quite serious. Let me be direct. Your daughter and son-in-law have committed multiple forms of fraud and financial exploitation. Hearing it stated so plainly by an attorney made it real in a way my own thoughts hadn't. These weren't just family problems. These were crimes. Chen walked me through each violation, pointing to specific documents. Unauthorized utility changes, fraud, forged signature on credit card authorization, identity theft, $8,000 in unauthorized charges, grand theft, possible title deed tampering, attempted property fraud. He pulled out a yellow legal pad, began making notes in precise handwriting. Oregon law is very clear on eviction rights. You can issue 30-day notice without providing any reason. They're month-to-month tenants at best, guests at worst. Given the financial fraud, you could argue 24-hour eviction, but 30 days is safer legally. Can we get them out? My voice came out more desperate than I'd intended. Out of my house? Absolutely. Chen's confidence was reassuring. You have absolute right to evict. What stops them from doing more damage in 30 days? That's my concern. We lock everything down first. Today, before they know what's happening. He leaned forward. Surprise is your advantage. They think you're passive. When we strike comprehensively and all at once. By the time they realize what's happening, you'll have already secured your assets and filed legal paperwork. He slid a document across the table. Retainer agreement. I suggest we move forward immediately. Today you lock everything down. Tomorrow I file the eviction notice. Within 72 hours we submit police report. Gives them no time to plan counter-strategy. I looked at the agreement, thought of my basement exile, the empty refrigerator, Cora counting my money without acknowledgement, Nicholas's mocking smile. I pulled out my pen. Where do I sign? Chen's slight smile told me he approved. Right there. And Mr. Patterson, you're doing the right thing. I left his office with a checklist and renewed purpose. First stop, the Hawthorne branch of my bank. The teller processed my requests efficiently. Close Cora's authorized user status on all accounts. Change all online passwords. Enable two-factor authentication requiring my phone for any access. She typed rapidly, clicked through screens, then looked up with professional sympathy. Your accounts are now secure, Mr. Patterson. She'll have no access whatsoever. The relief felt physical. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. Next, credit card companies. I sat in my car, worked through the list, called each one, explained the situation, blocked every card Cora had used. Yes, I'm filing a police report for identity theft. Can you send documentation of the unauthorized charges? They all agreed, evidence mounting. Utility companies followed the same pattern. One by one, I called Portland General Electric, the Water Bureau, gas company, internet provider. Provided my documentation, demanded they restore my contact information immediately. My daughter had no authority to make those changes. Please revert everything to my name and contact information. Each company apologized, processed the requests. By late afternoon, I'd locked every door they'd jimmied open. Cora stood at the grocery checkout, cart full of expensive items, steaks, wine, pre-made meals. She handed the cashier Percy's credit card with casual confidence. The machine beeped. Declined. Cora frowned. Try again. Same result. Do you have another form of payment? Flustered, fumbling, Cora pulled out her own card. It barely covered the total. People in line behind her shifted impatiently. Her face flushed. In the parking lot, she called the credit card company, anger building with each passing second on hold. Why was my card declined? The representative's voice remained neutral. That account has been closed by the primary cardholder. I show you had authorized user status, which has been revoked. The words hit like cold water. Revoked. By the primary cardholder, by her father. She drove home, fury replacing shock. Found me in the basement, reading a history book. Picture of calm. What did you do? She didn't knock, just stormed in. My card was declined at the store. I didn't look up from my book. Protected my assets. Do you have a question? This is unbelievable. After everything I've done for you. I finally looked up, met her eyes with level gaze. What exactly have you done for me, Cora? Moved my things to the basement? Spent thousands of my dollars? Forged my signature? Tell me which of those I should be grateful for. She sputtered, words failing. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I returned to my book. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm busy. She stood there, mouth opening and closing, then turned and fled up the stairs. Evening came. Nicholas tried logging into the electric company account. Access denied. Water account denied. Gas, internet, everything denied. Every password changed. He slammed his laptop closed. Rage building. Stormed to the basement stairs, heavy footfalls announcing his approach. I heard him coming. Didn't move from my chair. He appeared in the doorway, filling it with his bulk. Voice threatening. Old man, you're playing a dangerous game. This is our home now. You can't just... I stood. Something in my movement made him pause. I stepped forward. Nicholas, surprisingly, stepped back. This is my home, I said, voice quiet but steel hard. It always has been. It always will be. And it's time you understood something, Nicholas. I'm done being pushed around. You think you can just kick us out? We have rights. You have the right to face consequences. I stepped closer. You wanted to play games with my property, my money, my dignity? Fine. But now I'm playing back. I walked past him toward the stairs. He didn't try to stop me. And I'm much better at this than you are. I climbed past him, left him standing frozen in the basement doorway, shock replacing his usual swagger. At my laptop, I found an email from Robert Chen. Eviction notice drafted and ready for delivery. Police report scheduled for tomorrow morning. Everything is in motion. You did the right thing. I allowed myself a small smile. Typed response. Thank you. For the first time in days, I feel like I'm taking my life back. Above me, urgent voices argued. Nicholas and Cora, worried now, desperate. I opened a new email. Tom and Barbara Dryden's address, which Nicholas had once casually mentioned. They deserved to know what their son had done, what he'd turned their visit into. I began typing. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Dryden, I'm writing to inform you of some concerning events that have occurred during your visit. My fingers moved steadily across the keyboard. No hesitation now. The truth needed to come out. All of it. Morning brought no relief for Cora and Nicholas. I could hear them upstairs, whispering urgently in the kitchen while Tom and Barbara remained in the bedroom. From my basement vantage point, their desperation filtered down through the floorboards like smoke. I didn't know it then, but they were plotting their worst betrayal yet. 2 days passed in tense silence. Then, mid-morning on the third day, the doorbell rang. I climbed the basement stairs, opened the door to find a woman in her 50s, holding a county ID badge. "Mr. Patterson, I'm Janice Crawford from Adult Protective Services. May I come in?" Confusion must have shown on my face. "Adult Protective Services? I'm sorry, I don't understand. Has something happened?" Her smile was professional, but kind. "We received a report expressing concern about your well-being. It's routine. I just need to ask you some questions." "Of course. Please come in. Can I get you coffee?" We sat in the living room, my reclaimed territory. I refused to retreat to the basement for this. Janice pulled out a standardized assessment form, began asking questions. Current date? Easy. My address? Simple. Recent activities? I told her about the European tour, about leading a group of retired educators through Rome, Florence, Venice, about organizing itineraries and managing logistics. "Someone was concerned about cognitive decline," she said carefully, watching my face. "But I see no evidence of that. You're clearly organized, lucid, managing your affairs competently." "Someone called?" The pieces clicked together. "Who?" The report was anonymous. Apologetic tone. "But I can tell you there's no basis for concern. You're fine, Mr. Patterson." Anonymous. Of course. After Janice left, I sat in the quiet living room, the realization settling over me like ice water. My own daughter had tried to have me declared incompetent, had called Adult Protective Services claiming I had dementia, couldn't manage money, was paranoid about family. My hands shook as I dialed Beatrice. "They tried to have me declared incompetent," I said when she answered, words tumbling out. "Adult Protective Services just left. Someone reported I have dementia, can't manage finances." Sharp intake of breath. "Oh, Percy, I'm so sorry. But you're okay?" "What did the investigator say?" "That I'm clearly fine." Bitter laugh. "But Beatrice, my own daughter tried to paint me as senile, as incapable. How do you come back from that?" "I'm coming over. Stay there. Don't spiral on this alone." 20 minutes later, she arrived. Didn't ask permission, just sat beside me on the couch and took my hand. Her presence grounded me in a way words couldn't. "Percy?" She waited until I met her eyes. "This is their last card. They're panicking. People who are winning don't pull desperate moves like this. My own daughter." And she failed. The investigator saw the truth. That's what matters. She stayed. Made dinner using groceries she'd brought. The refrigerator was still mostly empty. I'd been eating cereal and takeout. We sat at the kitchen table, ate, talked. Not about Cora and Nicholas, but about life. Her late husband who'd died of a heart attack at 58. My wife who'd fought cancer so bravely. Dreams we'd postponed. Disappointments we'd survived. Somewhere during that evening, I realized I was enjoying myself. Despite everything, or perhaps because of everything, I felt more alive than I had in years. Beatrice's presence was comfortable, solid, real. When she left late that evening, she squeezed my hand at the door. "You're stronger than they know. Stronger than you knew." I watched her drive away, feeling something shift. Not just about Cora, about life's possibilities. Upstairs, Nicholas was attempting damage control with his parents. I heard fragments through the ceiling. Nicholas's voice insistent, Tom's sharp and skeptical. "Dad, you have to understand. Percy's making up stories because he's angry we're here. He's always been difficult." Tom's voice cut through. "Nicholas, stop. We're not stupid." "Fine. He wants us all gone. All of us. You see how unstable he is? And now he's trying to evict you. His own guests." Silence. Then Tom again, quieter but firm. "Something's wrong here, and I'm starting to think it's not Percy." The next morning, a courier delivered a large envelope from Chen and Associates. I signed for it, returned to the basement, opened it with deliberate slowness. 3 copies of formal 30-day eviction notices. Professionally prepared, legally precise, final. I read through them, felt the weight of what I was about to do. But the memory of that APS visit, Cora's attempt to destroy my credibility, hardened my resolve. Time to end this. I climbed the stairs. Everyone had gathered for breakfast. Cora at the stove, Nicholas at the table, Tom and Barbara with their coffee. Morning light streamed through the windows. I walked in, placed one eviction notice at Nicholas's place. one at Cora's, one at Tom and Barbara's. The papers landed with quiet finality. What is this? Cora's voice already knew the answer. 30-day notice of eviction. My tone stayed level, factual. For you, Nicholas, and his parents. You have 1 month to find other housing. Cora went pale. The spatula dropped from her hand, clattering against the stove. Dad, you can't be serious. Completely serious. Nicholas started to stand, voice rising. You can't just... I cut him off, my voice sharp for the first time. I can. I have. This is my property. You've been notified. You have 30 days. Tom picked up his copy, read it, showed it to Barbara. Their faces registered shock, but also something else. Confirmation. This made everything real. Percy wasn't just being difficult. Cora's eyes filled with tears. Please, Dad, don't do this. We can talk. I turned to leave, then paused. No, I wouldn't retreat to the basement. Not anymore. I walked to the living room instead, sat in my own chair in my own house, pulled out my phone, texted Beatrice. It's done. They've been served. Her response came immediately. I'm proud of you. Are you okay? I looked around the living room, my space reclaimed, looked toward the kitchen where 3 people sat with eviction notices, felt something settle in my chest. Yes, I typed back. For the first time in a long time, I'm okay. The next 3 days blurred into chaos. Cora cried constantly, intercepting me at every opportunity. Please, Dad, just talk to me. We can fix this. I walked past her. She followed to the basement stairs. Where will we go? What will we do? Please. My heart twisted, but I didn't respond. Nicholas took the opposite approach, aggressive, cornering me in the kitchen while I measured coffee. We're not leaving. What are you going to do? Call the police on your own daughter? If necessary, yes. He slammed his hand on the counter. You're making a mistake, old man. I met his eyes. The mistake was letting you stay this long. Upstairs, Tom and Barbara heard everything. I could feel their discomfort growing. Day 3 after the notices, Tom knocked on the basement door. I opened it to find both of them looking exhausted. Percy, we need to talk. All of us. Tom's voice was firm. Barbara and I have heard Nicholas's version. We read your email. Now there's eviction notices. We need the truth. Tonight, everyone in the living room. I considered, then nodded. 7 o'clock. But I'm bringing a witness. A friend. Tom frowned. A witness? Why? Because you deserve the whole truth, and I want someone objective there who isn't family. They exchanged glances, nodded agreement. I texted Beatrice immediately. Family confrontation tonight. Can you come? Her response. Wouldn't miss it. I'll bring the documentation we organized. Evening arrived. 7 o'clock. I'd arranged the living room deliberately, chairs in a semicircle facing the couch where Tom and Barbara sat. I took my armchair, Beatrice beside me in a dining chair I'd brought in. Cora and Nicholas sat opposite, as far from me as possible. The room felt like a courtroom. Tom cleared his throat. All right. Someone tell us what's really happening. Nicholas says Percy is overreacting to normal family tensions. Percy, your email claims fraud and theft. The truth. Now. I opened my folder. I have documentation. Would you like to see it, or should I just explain? Barbara leaned forward. Both. Show us and explain. I spread documents on the coffee table. First, bank statements. $8,247 in unauthorized charges over 2 months. Restaurants, electronics, clothing. I didn't make these purchases. I showed the forged signature, adding Cora as authorized user. This isn't my signature. Look at my driver's license. The P is completely different. Tom examined both, his face darkening. Next, utility company letters. 3 months ago, Cora changed all my utility accounts to her contact information, claiming I had declining health. I don't have declining health. I just led a 2-week European tour. Barbara's hand went to her mouth. Finally, my phone. This is a screenshot of text messages between Cora and Nicholas, discussing controlling the old man and, when he dies, the house is ours anyway. I slid the phone across. Barbara read, went pale, handed it to Tom. His face flushed red. Nicholas leaned forward, voice urgent. This isn't how it looks. Percy authorized everything. He was confused, forgetting things. We were helping him. Then why did you forge my signature? My voice stayed calm. Why lie to utility companies about my health? Why text about controlling me? Because you're old and stubborn. You can't admit you need help. Tom stood abruptly, voice like thunder. Enough! I've heard enough. He turned to Nicholas, and the disappointment on his face was devastating. This is theft. This is fraud. We raised you better than this. Barbara stood beside him. We're packing. Tonight. Now. We will not be part of this. Dad, please, just listen. No. Tom's voice was final. We're done listening to you. As Tom and Barbara left the room, Cora crumbled. She slid from her chair to her knees, hands clasped like prayer. Daddy, please, please forgive me. Sobs broke her words. I didn't know it would go this far. Nicholas kept saying you wouldn't even notice, that you were going to leave everything to me anyway, so what did it matter? The confession spilled out. He said you'd die soon, and we deserve to enjoy the house now. That you were selfish, keeping it all to yourself. I didn't want to do the APS call. I swear I didn't. But he said you'd take everything away. I looked down at my daughter on her knees and felt the full weight of her betrayal, mixed with terrible sadness. Tears ran down my face now, too. Cora! My voice wasn't angry, just tired. I gave you everything. Paid for your education. Gave you and Nicholas a home when you needed it. All I needed was respect, that's all. I'm sorry, I really am. I believe you are. I nodded slowly. But you're sorry you got caught, Cora. You're sorry you're losing what you wanted. I don't think you're sorry for what you did to me. Beatrice, silent until now, spoke. Her voice was calm, legal, but not unkind. Mr. and Mrs. Dryden are right to leave. Cora, Nicholas, people don't change until they face consequences. Real consequences. Percy isn't punishing you. He's saving himself. I stood. You have 27 days to find somewhere else to live. I suggest you start looking. Tom and Barbara appeared in the doorway, suitcases in hand. They couldn't pack everything, but enough. Tom walked to me, extended his hand. I'm sorry. We should have seen it sooner. I shook his hand. You were visiting your son. You had no reason to suspect. Barbara, crying quietly. We'll get the rest of our things this week. We'll call first. And Percy. Thank you for telling us the truth. We deserve to know what kind of man we raised. They left. The door closed. In the sudden silence, Cora got up from the floor, walked upstairs without a word. Nicholas followed, shooting me a look of pure hatred. Percy and Beatrice remained alone in the living room. I collapsed into my chair. The adrenaline drained away, leaving exhaustion. Beatrice sat on the arm of my chair, her hand on my shoulder. You did it, she said quietly. I looked around, my living room, looked at the closed door, looked at the ceiling. I don't feel like I won. I feel like I lost a daughter. Her hand squeezed my shoulder. You lost someone who was treating you like an ATM. Maybe someday Cora will become someone you can have a relationship with, but that person doesn't exist yet. I nodded, leaned back. Her hand on my shoulder felt like the only solid thing. Stay? I asked quietly. Just for a while? She smiled. As long as you need. Morning arrived, and with it the realization that everything had changed, yet nothing was finished. I woke in my armchair, neck stiff, still wearing yesterday's clothes. 26 days remaining. The house was quiet, different from the tense silence of recent weeks. This was peaceful silence. I heard movement upstairs, Cora and Nicholas waking, facing their new reality. I made coffee, my preferred brand, finally restored. Stood at the kitchen window watching dawn break over Portland. The house was still shared with people who betrayed me, but the sentence had an end date now. I could count it down. The days developed a strange rhythm. Cora and Nicholas left early each morning, returned late, apartment hunting in Portland's expensive rental market. I'd see them trudging in with defeated faces, hear Cora crying through the ceiling at night. Part of me wanted to comfort her. The rest remembered $8,000 in fraudulent charges. Nicholas grew surlier, snapped at Cora, slammed doors. I ignored them both, maintained my boundaries. Day 5, Cora approached me in the kitchen. We found a place, Gresham. It's all we can afford. She paused, waiting for something. Sympathy? Relief? I simply nodded. That's good. You'll make it work. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger, then left. I suppose to her, I was a stranger now. The father who gave everything was gone. This is who remained. Day 24 arrived. Morning. A sheriff's deputy knocked. Deputy Martinez, mid-30s, professional demeanor, a formality I'd arranged through Attorney Chen to ensure the process stayed peaceful. "Mr. Patterson, I'm here to oversee the eviction process." I showed him the paperwork. He posted himself by the front door, clipboard in hand. A rental truck sat in the driveway, already half loaded. The house looked ransacked. Boxes everywhere, furniture moved, years of their presence being systematically erased. I stood in the living room, watching them carry boxes past me. Neither spoke. Nicholas wouldn't meet my eyes. Cora's face was swollen from crying. Deputy Martinez watched impassively, occasionally checking his watch. Cora carried the last box, photographs, personal items. She reached the threshold, set it down, turned back. I stood in the foyer, the empty house stretching behind me. For a moment we were father and daughter again, caught in amber. "Dad," her voice broke, "I really am sorry." My throat tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "I know you are, Cora. I hope you learn from this. I hope you learn to value what you have before you lose it." She nodded, tears streaming. "I love you." The words hit like physical blows. "I love you too," I said, and meant it, even through everything. But love doesn't mean letting you hurt me. She picked up her box, walked through the door. Nicholas followed without a word, face carefully blank. The door closed. I stood alone in my house, truly mine now, and felt a strange mix of liberation and grief. I walked through the empty rooms, upstairs to the master bedroom that strangers had occupied. The room was clean but impersonal, stripped of warmth. I sat on the edge of the bed, my bed, and allowed myself to feel everything. The relief, the loss, the victory that felt hollow, the freedom that felt lonely. I cried, finally, for the daughter I'd hoped Cora would become, for the family I'd imagined having in retirement, for the years spent being taken for granted. When the tears stopped, I stood, washed my face, began making a list of what needed fixing, cleaning, restoring. Grief could wait. Right now, I had work to do. Late afternoon, the doorbell rang. Beatrice stood there with painting supplies, cleaning materials, take-out dinner. "Thought you could use some help." Something warm bloomed in my chest. Gratitude, affection, something deeper I wasn't ready to name yet. "You didn't have to do this." "I know. I wanted to." She stepped inside. "Besides, you helped me restore my life after my son. Let me help restore your house." We started in the master bedroom. Beatrice insisted, "Reclaim your space first." We moved furniture, scrubbed walls, assessed damage. A hole punched in the closet wall, water stains on the windowsill, scratches on hardwood. Nothing unfixable. As we worked, we talked. Not about Cora and Nicholas, but about possibilities. What shade should the bedroom be? What comes next? Beatrice climbed a ladder to paint near the ceiling. I steadied it, my hand on her ankle, and realized this felt right. This partnership, this presence. Over the next days, we transformed the house. Soft blue for the bedroom, warm cream for the living room. We worked in comfortable rhythm, she precise and methodical, I patient and detail-oriented. During one afternoon session, both painting opposite walls, Beatrice asked, without turning, "Percy, what now? What's next for you? For us?" I paused, roller dripping. "What do you mean?" She turned then, paint speckled and beautiful. "What's next for you? For us?" The us hung in the air. I set down my roller, crossed to her. "I think maybe it's time to start a new life, not as a victim, but as someone who controls his own happiness." Beatrice smiled. "That sounds like a very good plan." We stood close. She had paint in her hair. I probably did too. Our hands found each other, paint sticky and warm. "Would you want to be part of that plan?" "I already am," she said. A week after eviction day, the house looked like mine again. Better than before. Fresh paint, repaired damage, rearranged furniture. I stood in the master bedroom, my bedroom, looking at the transformation. Beatrice appeared in the doorway. "You missed a spot." She was teasing. There were no spots. The room was perfect. "This house has good bones," she said, stepping inside. "Just needed someone to care for it properly." I knew she wasn't just talking about the house. "I'd like to keep caring for it," I said, "if you'd help me." She moved closer, took my hand. I'd like that very much. We stood together, afternoon light streaming through clean windows, holding hands like teenagers. The house was quiet, but the good kind of quiet now. Peaceful, full of possibility. So, Beatrice said, what's our first adventure in your new life? I thought about travel brochures, retirement dreams, having someone to share them with. What would you say to Crater Lake in the fall? She grinned. I'd say yes. Late August arrived with the kind of morning that makes you believe in second chances. Sunlight streamed through my kitchen windows. I stood at the counter preparing coffee, my preferred blend from a local roaster Beatrice introduced me to. The ritual was meditative. Grinding beans, heating water to precise temperature, the pour-over method she'd taught me. The house was quiet. My quiet now. Peaceful. No tension hiding in corners. Just space and light and possibility. I carried my cup to the back terrace, a space I'd recently restored. Garden furniture Beatrice helped me select. Flowers blooming in pots. The doorbell rang. Beatrice, punctual as always, carrying a basket covered with cloth. Fresh scones, blueberry, still warm. You spoil me? She settled at the terrace table. Someone should. You've earned it. Over breakfast, we spread maps and travel guides on the table. Crater Lake National Park, Oregon's crown jewel. Beatrice had been once, decades ago. I'd somehow never managed the trip. We should take the scenic route, she suggested, tracing highways on the map. Stop in small towns. No rushing. I smiled. I spent my whole career organizing efficient tours. Now I just want to wander. A week at Crater Lake? Why not 2? First week there, second, wherever we end up. She looked delighted. Look at you, embracing spontaneity. We planned for mid-September, after summer crowds, before winter weather. This spontaneity felt foreign and wonderful. After Beatrice left to run errands, with a kiss on my cheek that still made my heart flutter, I checked my mail. Among the bills, a handwritten envelope, Cora's familiar script. I stood at the mailbox for a long moment before opening it. The letter was several pages, handwritten, tear-stained. She'd started therapy, working full nursing shifts, trying to pay down debts. Dad, I know I don't deserve forgiveness now, maybe never, but I'm trying to understand how I became someone who could hurt you that way. Nicholas and I are figuring things out, whether we even should be together. He's the one who pushed a lot of it, but I let him. I chose to go along. That's on me. I hope someday I can be the daughter you deserved. I hope someday you can be proud of me again. I read it twice, then folded it carefully. My eyes were wet, but I wasn't sure if it was sadness or relief or something else entirely. Beatrice returned to find me on the terrace, letter in hand. She didn't ask, just sat beside me, waited. Eventually I handed it to her. She read in silence, then folded it and gave it back. How do you feel? I considered. I don't know. Part of me wants to call her. Part of me thinks she's only sorry because she lost what she wanted. Beatrice nodded. You don't have to decide today, or this year. Maybe she'll become someone you can trust again. Maybe not. But that's her journey, Percy, not yours. I took her hand. You're very wise, she laughed. I'm very old. It comes with the territory. We're very old, and I've never been happier, she squeezed back. Neither have I. Evening came. Beatrice had gone home. She maintained her own house, though we discussed moving in together more often now. I sat on my terrace watching sunset paint Portland in oranges and purples. I thought about the man who'd returned from Europe 6 weeks ago, expecting warmth and finding betrayal. That man was softer, more naive, more willing to be used. The man sitting here now was different, harder in some ways, but stronger. Not bitter, but boundaried. I'd fought for my dignity, my property, my right to respect, and I'd won. Not perfectly. I'd lost my daughter, at least temporarily. But I'd found myself again, and I'd found Beatrice. I understood now what these weeks taught me. Real family doesn't use you, they support you. Blood relation doesn't guarantee love or loyalty. Those must be earned by actions, not just claimed by genetics. I'd spent years believing I owed my daughter everything simply because she was my daughter. But relationships are reciprocal. I could offer love, support, home, but she needed to offer respect, honesty, appreciation. When she stopped, the relationship became parasitic. I'd had to cut it out to survive. And maybe that was the only way she'd learn what a real relationship requires. That understanding settled in my chest like peace. I wasn't the bad guy for enforcing boundaries. I wasn't cruel for demanding respect. I was just a man who finally chose himself. Early September morning, Beatrice's car in the driveway, trunk open. I locked my front door, my house, my rules, my peace, and carried the last bag to the car. We'd packed for 2 weeks, hiking clothes, cameras, maps. I paused at the car door, looked back. The house stood solid, welcoming, waiting for my return. No longer a prison or battlefield, just home. Beatrice started the engine. Ready? I settled into the passenger seat. More than ready. As we pulled away, Portland spread behind us, the open road ahead, highway stretching forward, morning sun making everything golden. Beatrice drove, I navigated, taking the scenic route, no rush, 2 weeks to wander. I watched the landscape scroll past, forests, mountains, small towns, glanced at Beatrice, silver hair catching sunlight, confident hands on the wheel, small smile playing on her lips. This woman who appeared when I needed her most. "What are you thinking?" she asked without looking over. That I thought my life chapter was closing. That after retirement you just... Wait, she glanced at me. And now? I took her free hand. Now I understand that life continues, as long as you let it continue. I chose myself. And somehow, I found you. She squeezed back. We found each other, Percy, at exactly the right time. The road curved ahead, disappearing into trees. We didn't know exactly where we'd end up, just that we were heading there together. I settled back in my seat, feeling something I thought I'd lost. Freedom. Not freedom from Cora or Nicholas. Freedom from fear of being used. Freedom from believing I had to tolerate disrespect for the sake of family. Freedom to build the family I choose, the one that supports rather than exploits. The sun climbed higher, the road unfolded. Beatrice and I drove toward Crater Lake and whatever came after, ready for the next chapter. Together. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.